So, you wished for Shenhe, and now you finally got her, but you don't know how to build her. Well, you are at the right video. Hello everyone, welcome back to my complete Shenhe guide. In this video, I'm going to cover how to build Shenhe, what weapons and artifacts you should use, what are her team comps, and talking about her utility as a support in general, and so much more. So, keep watching till the end so that you don't miss out on any crucial information that I'm going to be providing in this video. Shenhe is a pretty niche character that buffs cryo characters, pushing them to new heights and making them deal damage that has never been seen before. Normal attack, she does a 5-hit strike with the polearm that she wields to deal physical damage. Elemental skill, the main part of her kit. This has a tap and a hold version. When you use your skill, she gives something called icy quills to the entire party depending upon if you hold or tap the skill. She buffs the damage of the characters that will deal cryo damage, be it through normal attack, plunge attack, charge attack, elemental skill, and even elemental burst based on her own attack, making you build tons and tons of attack on her. The way that this buff works is that when you tap Shenhe's skill, she will buff the entire party's first 5 cryo hits. Okay, first 5 cryo hits, be it normal attack, charge attack, plunging attack, elemental skill, and even elemental burst. This is on a 10-second duration with a 10-second cooldown, which means that if you do not use up your 5 hits, this buff will expire after 10 seconds, and this buff is on a 10-second cooldown. I'm gonna use an example that is Shenhe and Ayaka because they have amazing synergy with each another. When you swapped to Shenhe and did Shenhe's elemental skill and then swapped back to Ayaka and did her burst, since Ayaka's burst will tick for 19 plus 1 time, so the first 5 of the 19 cutting damages will be buffed by Shenhe, and the rest 14 and the bloom damage will not be buffed. This is how Shenhe's buff works in a nutshell. Now, this buff can be used by characters that can deal cryo damage, like cryo characters like Ayaka, Ganyu, Kaya, Chongyung, and cryo-infused characters whose attacks get infused with cryo, and even characters like Kazuha and Venti whose elemental burst can be infused with an element that can deal cryo damage. Now, I have been talking about tap version of her elemental skill. Tap version will give you 5 icy quills on a 10-second cooldown. When you hold Shenhe's E, she will give 7 icy quills on a 15-second cooldown. Okay? So that is the difference between tap and hold. The tap one will give you less icy quills on a less cooldown, and the hold will give you more icy quills on a higher cooldown. The tap will give you 3 particles and the hold will give you 4 particles. Well, I hope that this part was clear. If not, you can just rewind this section because her elemental skill is quite complex to understand. So yeah, if you want, you can just rewatch this section and then move forward. Elemental burst. On cast, it will create a dome on the field where if any enemy inside that AoE, their physical resistance and cryo resistance is decreased by a certain amount. So her skill is basically for buffing characters, and her burst will reduce the resistance, the physical and cryo resistance of enemies. Okay? Ascension 1 passive. Any characters inside the burst of Shenhe will get a 15% cryo damage bonus. So this is a good way to gain cryo damage bonus for your main hyper carries or quick swap characters. Ascension 4 passive. After using her elemental skill, she will give you additional buffs based on how you used her elemental skill. If you had tapped her elemental skill, the elemental skill and burst damages of characters would be increased by 15% for 10 seconds. And if you hold the elemental skill, normal attack, charge attack, plunging attack will gain a 15% increase in damage for 15 seconds. Talking about talent priority, you mainly want to level up your elemental skill and then your elemental burst, and leave your normal attack at level 1 unless you are building a physical or a cryo Shenhe. Talking about playstyle and combos, this section I'm gonna explain you in detail how you want to play Shenhe and how you can maximize her buff that she'll give through her elemental skill. The main way you want to use Shenhe is through her elemental skill, okay? For this example, I'm gonna take a comp that is the most strongest comp in Genshin Impact. That is the Ayaka Freeze comp. That will include Ayaka, Kazuha, Shenhe, and Kokomi. Okay, I'm gonna use this comp as an example to show you how you can use your Shenhe. First, you want to do Shenhe's elemental burst and then your elemental skill, tapping Shenhe's elemental skill. Then swap to Kazuha, do his elemental burst, and then skill, group the enemies, swap to Kokomi, do her E, freeze the enemies, then swap to Ayaka, and before the Shenhe's buff runs out, do Ayaka's burst, and then before Ayaka's burst expires, swap back to Shenhe and do her elemental skill again. And then you can just swap to Ayaka back and then do her elemental skill and then normal attack. So what happened here was Shenhe's elemental burst will reduce the resistance of enemies, okay? And her E will give you 5 icy quills to each and every teammate on a 10-second cooldown. So you are cycling through each and every character and using those icy quills. And at last, when you come to Ayaka and did her elemental burst, the first 5 hits of her elemental burst got buffed. And then the buff expired. And then before her elemental burst ends, you swap back to Shenhe and do her elemental skill again. This way you can buff 10 hits of Ayaka's elemental burst and not 5. This way you can maximize Shenhe's buff that she can give you. The main way was to use Shenhe's elemental skill twice. One at the starting of the rotation, one after the rotation before Ayaka's burst ends, so that Shenhe will buff 10 hits of the cutting damage and not 5. Now, let us talk about the artifacts that you can use on Shenhe. Well, to be honest, Shenhe doesn't really have an artifact piece or an artifact set that is tailored made for her. So she doesn't really have like a full set. Regardless, you can build her with a 2-piece mix and matching way. The first way to build her is by using a 4-piece noblesse. It is a general support artifact set that Shenhe can utilize to buff other characters. Since Shenhe is buffing the cryo characters, you can have a noblesse Shenhe that can buff cryo characters as well as give them additional attack through the noblesse. So like the noblesse and the cryo buff that she can give can be utilized by characters that are going to do a lot of damage. For those who don't have a full set, the alternative way and the most cheapest way to build Shenhe is by using 2-piece Glad with 2-piece Shimenawa, stacking tons of attack on her so that she can buff even better. Now her burst is a 80 energy cost burst. So if you're lacking energy recharge, try going for 2-piece Glad with 2-piece Emblem of Severed Fate to gain that 20% energy recharge that is useful for burst uptime. For the main stats, you mainly want to go for a attack timepiece, a attack goblet, and a attack circlet. Energy recharge can be used on the timepiece, but only if you can't spam her burst on cooldown. Otherwise, you're going to be losing on tons of buff that she can give if you're swapping an attack timepiece with a energy recharge. Try to make up energy recharge through the substats of each and every artifact, and then through a little bit through the weapon as well. That way you can run a triple attack and gain the maximum buffs from Shenhe. For the substats, you mainly want to aim for energy recharge, attack, and then a little bit of crit rate. Crit rate only if you are going to run a weapon like Favonius Lance, which is her best in slot for a 4-star option. Now, let us talk about how much energy recharge Shenhe needs. Well, it depends upon the weapon, the team comps where she is in, and the number of cryo units. To be in a safe range, I would recommend 150 to 160 energy recharge, but it can be less or more depending upon your own team and the way you play Shenhe. Just try to go for 150 to 160 to be in a safe zone. Anything higher is good, anything lower try to make it up with a battery in Shenhe's comp. Weapons. The stats that you're looking for on your weapon is basically energy recharge and attack percent. The 5-star weapon choices would include something like a Calamity Queller, her best in slot and signature weapon, giving her tons of attack and elemental damage bonus through the passive. If you don't have a Calamity Queller and you have a Vortex Vanquisher, you can run the Vortex Vanquisher as well because it will give you tons of attack. The Engulfing Lightning is another weapon that you can run on Shenhe because of the energy recharge and the attack that it gives you, but I believe Engulfing Lightning can be used for other characters like Raiden herself and even Xiangling. But if you have an extra Engulfing Lightning lying around, you can give that to Shenhe as well. Now, if you were unlucky enough and got the Skyward Spine through the standard banner, you can use that as well as it has a high base attack and gives you some energy recharge that Shenhe can use. For the 4-star weapon choices, there is actually just one weapon that is just amazing for her. That is the Favonius Lance. The Favonius Lance is basically like a best in slot 4-star weapon choice for her. It will solve the energy problems that she have, and it even has a high base attack, and it is even good for team utility. The only downside is that you need to build a little bit of crit rate on her, but I think you would manage building a little bit of crit rate through the artifact substats. The Lithic Blade is another good option because it would provide you with the raw attack. Same goes for the Wavebreaker's Fin. It will provide you with the huge raw attack that she can utilize to buff other characters in her party comp. Constellations. None of her late constellations is that interesting in my opinion. Even at C0, she can perform very well in buffing characters as she can perform at C6. Of course, at C6, she will perform a little better, but I believe C0 Shenhe is fine and enough for everyone. Given that, I am also going to discuss what her constellation does for the Veil players that are going to pull for a constellation for Shenhe. Her constellation 1 gives you an extra charge of her elemental skill, which can solve some energy requirements for Shenhe, and well, since it gives you 2 charges, you can buff the characters twice. Now, there is something that I would like to mention, that is that when you use your elemental skill like one after the other, the icy quills won't stack and you will gain 5 or 7 based on how you use them and not 10 or 14. So you want to use one elemental skill of Shenhe first and then swap through your team and then use another. And if you use them one after the other, like continuously, consecutively, you won't actually get the full stacks, but you will only get one of the stacks, that is 5 or 7. Her constellation 2 increases the burst duration, and the active characters in Shenhe's burst will be given a cryo crit damage, that is 15% cryo crit damage. That is again a little bit good for the cryo hyper carries in her team comp. Her Constellation 3 is a plus 3 levels for her elemental skill. Constellation 4, it is basically increasing the damage of Shenhe's E where other characters use her icy quills. Constellation 5 is a plus 3 levels for your elemental burst. Constellation 6, it is a okay-ish constellation. Normal attacks and charge attacks will not consume the icy quill stacks, making a charge attack Ganyu hyper carry with Shenhe a broken team comp. Here, the constellations are not that worth it in my opinion, so pulling for constellations is just not needed. However, if you want to pull constellations for Shenhe, C2 is a good stopping point for the 15% cryo crit damage that it can provide you with and the 2 charges of her elemental skill. Just make sure to not use the 2 charges of her elemental skill consecutively. Teamcomps. The primary role for Shenhe is actually a cryo buffer, so being a little bit niche, she cannot fit in that many team comps. But in a team comp where the hyper carry is a cryo unit like Ayaka, in my opinion, she will perform amazingly. Okay, Ayaka and Shenhe are like the best friends. So freeze teams and cryo hyper carry teams or even a mono cryo team is a good option to run with Shenhe. The first comp that I'm gonna mention is a Ayaka, Shenhe, Kazuha and Kokomi comp. Like I mentioned in the Ayaka guide. Here Shenhe will have the noblesse and give you attack through the noblesse and even buff your Ayaka. Kazuha will give you the elemental damage bonus and the viridescent shred. Kokomi on the other hand will have the thrilling tales of the dragon slayer and the Millelith Sith to buff your attacks of Ayaka even further. Now for the replacements, if you don't have any of these characters, of course there are tons of replacements that you can use. This is actually a very expensive comp, so pulling 4 units for a specific comp like this is not that recommended. But if you do have these characters, try to put them in this comp and then watch Ayaka just destroy each and every enemy in the game. Now let us talk about the replacements for each and every character. Ayaka can be replaced by someone like a Ganyu. Okay, you can use a Ganyu charge attack or even Ganyu's elemental burst to do tons of damage. For Kazuha, well, someone like a Sucrose and even Venti can be a good option. For Kokomi, of course, there are many options. Someone like a Barbara can be useful, Ayato, a burst Ayato, Xingqiu and even Yelan. But you need to normal attack with Xingqiu and Yelan to proc their hydro application. That is the only downside, but you can use those characters as well. The other comp would be a mono cryo comp where there are 3 cryos and 1 anima support. The cryo units can be Rosaria, Ayaka, Chongyun, Kaya, Diona, and then you pair any of these 2 characters with Shenhe and then Kazuha, and then you can get a mono cryo comp. Well, I hope I was able to break down her kit and her utility as a support in general, and if you still have any problems building Shenhe or any other characters, just leave a comment down below and I would try to answer it. Or else you can just join my Discord, link will be in the description, where I can help you out further with your account and make you progress through the abyss. Well, that is all for this video. If you found this video helpful, try to go check my Ayaka guide that is out by now. That will be appreciated. If you like this video, liking and subbing to the channel is always greatly appreciated, and I will see you all in the next video. So eat your snacks and bye bye.